You're listening to How to 20-something, the only podcast that helps both men and women navigate their 20s and learn how to adult across all aspects of their lives. We're going to be focusing on career, relationships, finances, fitness, nutrition, and all of the common challenges and obstacles a typical 20-something will face in this post-college life and what to do about it. I'm your host, Just Diamond, and I am the CEO and founder of Just Diamond Coaching, where I help young professionals get their shit together, gain their confidence, and own their life. No one prepares you for this adulting world, so allow me to help you feel like you are no longer a chicken running around with its head cut off, and that you actually know what the hell is going on and what your next step to take is. Welcome to How to 20-something. Welcome back to another episode of How to 20-something, where today I brought on a guest to talk to you about how to talk. We all grew up giving school presentations and learned how to write properly, but not many of us know how to speak, or at least speak to be heard. As a podcast host, I edit out a lot of guests' ums and likes and you knows and insert any filler word you want, and I edit a majority of them out because I want you to get the information floating around those words and not get caught up in the excessive fillers. But on a more serious and relatable note, you need to learn how to speak, not necessarily to be able to go on stage and make an impact, but more so if you want to succeed in your career and relationships. Whether you want to climb the corporate ladder or not, you need to learn how to talk in front of people, and that's what today's guest is here to help you with. And if you are someone who suffers from stage fright or even simply nervous or anxious when walking into any unfamiliar environment, then I am here to remind you of the free PDF I have for you to help you walk into any room with confidence. All you have to do is head to the show notes or to justdiamondcoaching.com/confidence, put in your name and email, and I will have that sent right to your inbox. But I specifically wanted to bring on Brian because he has quite the unique approach to public speaking, or really speaking in public, that will help enhance your current skills or lack thereof. So before we dive into how you can improve the way you talk and tell stories, I'm going to introduce Brian so you know a bit more of his background. Brian Lafontaine has been a professional storyteller for more than 25 years as an actor, director, coach, and voiceover artist working in film, television, theater, podcasts, corporate and event hosting, stand-up comedy, improvisation, and countless commercials. Brian has appeared in more than 50 movies and TV shows, including Ozark, Stranger Things, The Hate U Give, and can be seen in the upcoming season of the Netflix hit show Outer Banks. And for my sister, who's listening, he was in season 5, episode 17 of Vampire Diaries. Brian now helps others bring their stories to life in captivating and motivating ways, and he's here to help you learn how to do so within the context of your life. Hi, Brian. Thanks for coming on How to 20-something.
Jess, thank you. I had to do it. You set me up for it. You totally set me up for it. Hi, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here. I am excited to be here. We've been talking about this for a while, so it's great. I'm super excited to be here. Finally, we made it. I'm so glad to be here on How to 20-something. It's been a long time since I've 20-something. So.
Yeah, but the audience doesn't need to know that. It comes with expertise. It's like wine. It ages gracefully.
You're damn right it does.
All right, so Brian, I want to start with your story because you went from acting to being a speaking coach, and I want to know what brought on this transition, or I guess addition, because you're not done with acting. It's something that you've added into your life. So what brought this full circle for you?
It was just time, life. I've been doing this for over 30 years. I have been. I started in the entertainment industry when I was 20 years old. I was just starting in my 20s. And that was my introduction to show business when I first started doing stand-up comedy after I lost my golf scholarship at Catawba College and ended my student athlete's career. And of course, I went into show business, just like any normal person would. So that led the transition into acting and auditioning for plays and doing theater. I was able to get an agent as a result of that. And then they started submitting me for film and television and movies and voiceovers and corporate stuff and all the things that you just listed during the intro. And they've been my agent ever since. And somehow I have been able to cobble together an actual career, profession. It's not just a side gig. It's not just a side job. It's something that I still do passionately to this day. And I still teach. I still have an adult studio class that I teach on Monday nights here in Charlotte. I still work with other actors and coach them. But because of what I do, because I am a self-employed independent contractor, similar to yourself, what you're doing with your coaching business, I'm sure you experience that instability on a daily basis or weekly basis and wondering, okay, is this the end? Is it going to stop at some point? And if it does, then what do I do? So for the past 30 years, that's what I've dealt with. There hasn't been a day that hasn't gone by where I haven't wondered, is today the day that it ends? Even as fortunate as I've been, as successful as I've been in the grand scheme of things, you never know when the next one's going to be. I just worked on Outer Banks a couple weeks ago, and I left that shoot thinking, okay, there's a chance that could be the last one. You never know. When you do it for this long, then you have to wonder, now, if it does go that way, what can I do? What am I qualified to do? I've been a performer. I've been an entertainer. I've been an actor. I got my degree in communications, focusing primarily on speech communication. So when I graduated from college, I was qualified to work the drive-through at Burger King, pretty much. There wasn't an option to go into acting or voiceover. All of that stuff was alien to me. I didn't even know that existed as a possibility for me. So when I got to this point a couple of years ago, when things started to change, I'm not getting any younger, trying to be proactive and figure out what can I do if it gets to that point. I'm not one to kind of sit around and wait for the floor to fall out from underneath me, because that's just a frightening, terrifying situation. I was talking with a good friend of mine over Thanksgiving, and she's got a very successful life coaching company of her own. And she said, have you ever thought about public speaking coaching? And I said, say more. And she's like, you should really think about offering your services as a public speaking coach. And it was just like a slap in the face, because it was such a duh kind of moment of, I could do that tomorrow. It's the exact same skill set, just offering it to a different clientele and approaching it from a much more creative standpoint. Not this very corporate cookie cutter. And please know that I'm generalizing in those terms. I know that there's a lot of people out there doing similar things, and they're focusing it on a very corporate, professional, this is how you behave properly sort of way. And I don't necessarily think that that's the best way for everybody, especially in this time right now where I feel like authenticity and connecting with people as people has I don't know if it's ever been any more important than it is right now. I think people are searching for that. They really want that. So that's what I bring to the table, is a very unique and original, catered specifically to each client. I meet them where they are based on what their experience is, what their personality is like, what their goals are, all the different things that go along with that. I know I talked to you about this when you and I first spoke. The best way that I can describe it is like directing a play. When I'm directing a play, I've got 6 different people in the cast. All 6 of those actors learned how to become actors from different schools of thoughts and theories and practices, and they've honed their skills to develop a method that works for them. I don't know what that is. I have to be able to communicate and work with 6 different actors in 6 different ways so that when they all get on stage together, they're all telling the same story. So it's got to be a much more creative approach based on each individual, as opposed to sticking them in this equation where you all follow the same steps, you all get the same outcome. I don't believe that it works that way. That was a really long answer. You're welcome.
It was, but it was a good answer. And the way you talk captivates me. So I'm excited for you to share any tidbits of skills that my listeners can start applying for themselves. But I think you're right in terms of the corporate world has been experiencing this shift for probably the last close to 10 years, I would say, maybe 5 to 10 years, give or take. Because when I was in school, when I was an interior design major, we had a corporate design project. And one of those projects was redoing the Home Depot's headquarter office in Atlanta, Georgia. And we actually went and saw it for ourselves when we were kind of halfway through that project. And the idea of that project was these flex spaces and these multi-use spaces, and taking out having all the C-suite execs on the perimeter and then the cubicles on the inside. So it was, that alone was already shifting the way an in-office situation works or structure works, to break down that hierarchy of breaking down old ways and old behaviors and old stigmas as well. And then throw the pandemic into it a couple years later after doing that project, and it uprooted it all again. Of now you have remote workers, and you could have someone on your team that lives across the world and you have to communicate to them, or you're all coming together to present to someone, or one person is designated to speak to a ton of people to get the same message across that you guys collaborated on. Everything is shifting. So you're right in that approach of, it is not a one size fits all. It's what's going to work for you, that's going to convey the message to the best of your abilities and for the benefit of the people listening as well.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I own the fact that I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I'm not suited to work with every person out there who needs to speak in front of a person or a room full of people. It's no different than anything else, like therapists or other coaches or just other leaders. And not everybody is meant to work with every person, and I'm okay with that. I've spent my entire career working that way. When I'm auditioning for a role, it's me and 1,000 other people. That's not an exaggeration. It's me and 1,000 other people. All I can do is prepare the best that I can, offer it to the production company, the casting directors, the director, whatever, and say, if this is what you want, cool. I'll show up on set. I'll do a great job for you. If you want somebody different or something different, then that's okay. Go get them. Not everybody's meant to work with every person. Nobody is the end-all, be-all of human existence in anything.
Yeah, it's kind of how we create a system that works specifically for you. You find the coach that specifically works for you. It's what system aligns best with you and what you're looking for and what you're after. On that note, what does your system look like when you help your clients? I'll give an example, so you're not just, because I know there's so many different types of public speaking. Let's say I know you have a great story and I want you to tell it, so I'm going to go this route of, you have someone in the C-suite that's going to go talk to 100 other people, if not 1,000 other people, and they need to get across a bunch of different data points in the most boring way possible that no one pays attention to. What is your process so that that doesn't happen and they actually are engaging with their audience, and the audience is engaging back with them, and it flows so that everyone's getting the information properly and not tuning it all out?
Right. And that's a tough pill right from the get-go. They've already got so many things stacked against them because it is such inside baseball sort of information of, the company needs me to get this out. I have to deliver these facts and figures and data. So we've got to find a way to do it. But I am going to do everything in my power with these people to keep the slides as minimal as possible, because no one's going to remember that. That's a static image. Public speaking is it's a visual medium. They came to see you. They came to listen to you. They didn't come to read. Again, I'm going to relate it to my profession as an actor. That's why when you go to movies, you don't buy a ticket at the box office and walk in and they hand you a copy of the script and you sit down in the theater with the lights on and you read it. No, that's the exact same thing as having somebody give a slide presentation and read to you off the slides in their presentation.
That's such a good point.
Yes. No, it is an active thing. You want to see the person. You want to feel that energy in their personality. You want to feel what they're bringing to you. You want to hear their voice. You want to get that connection. When you're there in the movies and you can feel yourself, when you're really connected to the story, you actually feel yourself in some cases moving closer and closer to the screen because it's drawing you in. It's the same thing with a person live on stage, whether it be music, whether it be stand-up comedy, whether it be motivational speaking. When the person is engaging with you and they're connecting with you, not just at you, but with you, they realize that you're there, they're acknowledging that you're there, and they're doing everything within their power to make you a part of what they're talking about. it becomes more of a conversation and less of a presentation. Even if you're not necessarily speaking back from the audience, I'm going to make sure that the client that I work with is working tirelessly to try and connect with every person in that room, whether it's 100 or 1,000. By the end of that presentation, that person should be exhausted. They absolutely should be exhausted because that's the effort that it takes. And the audience deserves that. They took the time out. They came to sit in to listen to you for a reason. Somebody asked you to speak for a reason. Give them a reason to listen to you. You've got to give them a reason to listen to you. More than just, my boss made me do this. That's not a good enough reason. It needs to be lively. It needs to be active. It needs to be energetic. It needs to be optimistic. It needs to be hopeful, encouraging, inspirational, motivational, whatever it may be. Unless you're giving the speech of, we're filing chapter 11 today. I try and describe it this way. Imagine going to a funeral and the person who gives the eulogy talks about how horrible death is. It's already a sad situation. We already know that it's heartbreaking and we're trying to grieve and deal with this situation. If you stand up there and tell us about how horrible it is on top of that, then we're just going to be like, oh my God, please. No. So that's why most people, hopefully, in that situation are trying to celebrate or encourage or shine a light that's going to be something positive and hopeful, no matter what it is. So that's my point there, is that there needs to be life to it. Use your personality, use your sense of humor. Don't just make it about business. They're going to remember you. They came to see you. They came to listen to you. They didn't come to read your slides. They're going to get the information one way or the other. In most cases, you're going to end up emailing it to them in a PDF after the presentation is over anyway. So let yourself have some fun with it. Connect with them.
I love it. I love everything you just said. If you were to pinpoint any skills, so to start to bridge the gap from acting to public speaking to even storytelling, what are some helpful skills you've learned from your own experiences that has helped you become a better speaker for yourself and then also has allowed you to help your clients be better speakers as well?
Getting them to be willing to share aspects of themselves. The thing that's going to separate you, the thing that you bring to anything is you and your experience, your journey, how you got to where you are. To be the person that has been asked to lead this meeting or give this presentation or to give this talk, you were asked to be there for a reason. Someone said, hey, Jess, you have something to offer to this audience based on your experience, your life journey, your failures, your successes, your heartbreaks, your victories, all those things. That's what you get to bring to it that someone else in a similar profession to you can't bring to it. It doesn't make you better or worse. It just means that this is yours. Yours is unique to you. We all know that there's everybody out there right now is trying to get their message out, trying to tell their story, trying to get seen and be noticed and stand out from the crowd. And a lot of people end up doing the very same thing that everybody else is doing. So how do you separate yourself? So I always start from there. I start from you. Tell me your story. And I always try to get to know the person. The first thing that I do in a session with a brand new client is I record everything on video so that they can actually see the playback and we can start to work that way. The camera picks up everything. It's the best way to train and see what your habits are, things that, it's one thing for me to tell you. It's another thing for me to point at it and go, see, there it is. So they can see it for themselves. So the first thing that I always do is to sit down and just truly talk to them. Have a conversation with them. I don't want to use the word interview them, but it's very similar to that. If I have no background with this person at all, I need to get to know them because it's the aspects of their life, of the things that they're passionate about, the things that their message, whatever their message is, how they got to this point in their career to where now they're in a position that they're supposed to influence and inspire other people. That's the biggest thing, is I get to know that person and I try to encourage them to share as much about themselves as possible. We use the word vulnerability, which scares a lot of people because a lot of people hear vulnerability and think, oh, it's like therapy. You want me to cry and tell you about how I was abused as a child. No, not necessarily. Not even at all. It's just about being willing to open up aspects of your story so that other people can connect to you and relate to you. We can't relate with perfection. Nobody can connect with that. And also, I think perfect is boring. It's not interesting. Again, relate it to movies and TV shows and all the content that we consume, whether it be podcasts, whether it be audiobooks, all that stuff. It's about people who are flawed. It's not about perfect. They don't make movies and TV shows about nice people who are kind to each other all the time. That's boring. We want to see people fall on their face and get back up again. We've all got that story.
Speaking to the listeners in particular, so 20-somethings that maybe they haven't done a lot of speaking at their own work yet, or they're about to embark on that part of the working environment, how can they apply their story to being more relatable in that type of setting, especially when they're not that high in the corporate totem pole yet? They're still kind of new. They're the fresh bloods. It's a little bit more intimidating to go talk to these other people. I know I just spoke with someone and he's 25, 26, and he had to present to the C-suite of his company about a certain software that wasn't working well because that's what his job was. That is intimidating, and it's also hard to make that engaging. And what story do you bring in? So that's my question. How do you bring the personality into a workplace setting for speaking?
That's a wonderful question, and man, I would love that opportunity to work with this type of person, because I immediately went to be curious. That's the most important thing. You're a younger person, and I'm not trying to be condescending in any way, but just like you said, you don't have that many years behind you. You don't have that kind of track record, yet you're in this position. One, again, take into account you're in this position for a reason. They asked you to lead this meeting or speak to this group for a reason. You are capable. You've got the information. But there's also going to be people in there that have been doing it longer or may know more than you. That doesn't take away the legitimacy of what you know and how capable you are and how correct you are. It doesn't minimize that at all. But be curious. Be curious about them and go into it. Approach it from, this is what I have learned so far. This is what I have done. And I want to learn more from people like you, just to use that an example. This is where I've come. This is what I've gotten to. And I know that there's so much more that I need to absorb or learn or experience. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You don't have to be a know-it-all. You don't have to be 25 and pretend that you're 50. Be 25. I don't know how else to say it. Just be curious about the people who have been there longer. Be open to learning from them. Try and get that information from them, gain from them, and say, this is what I've experienced so far. How about you? I think most people in that situation who are my age are going to go, oh my gosh, I remember when I was where you were. And these are the things that I did. Now we've got a connection. We've got a connection together. We have similar experiences that we can relate and be like, mine was like this. I just did this. We're just looking for that common thread. Once again, being authentic, just as humans. I think it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah, we connect through storytelling. That's how you build any relationship. This isn't just in regards to you speaking to your higher ups. This is in regards to making friends or getting into a relationship or even talking to your family. It's learn how to tell stories properly. So I want to ask you, how can those listening benefit from improving their skills in the way they talk, in the way that they share information, in the way that they storytell? What are the ways they can improve? Why is this something that's important for them to listen up to right now? Give it all to me.
Oh my gosh. Give it all to you, man. Well, what can they do? That's based, that answer is going to be based on the individual. So it just depends on what you're struggling with. If you are struggling with I'm going to use the most general, basic one, the most common one that you see with people, and that's going to be the stress and anxiety or fear and anxiety that comes along with not feeling like you're interesting enough to listen to. Nobody wants to hear my crap. Nobody wants to hear from me. my story is not that interesting. Yes, it is. It absolutely is. I guarantee you that it is. And it gets a little touchy-feely in that sense, in that way of being like, you're good enough and you're smart enough and gosh darn it, people like you. Yeah, I get it. It is very cliche, but that's what you need to be open to. Having the ability, the willingness to be somewhat private in public. Again, all of this goes back to my acting background. It really, really does. If I am telling a story, if I'm in a scene that is based on some level of human experience or connection, what we're doing is we're trying to recreate human behavior, once again, in the most authentic way possible. We already do it as humans on a daily basis. For some reason, when we get in front of a group of strangers, we go, I don't want to share that with everybody.
I feel like I lose my personality because I shut myself off. I'm like, oh, no. You can't know my secrets. You can't know my flaws. I need to come off as this like kind little sweetheart and you'll like me for it. When that's not the truth. The truth is they'll like me for all of the crap that comes with me and all the stories I tell and the experiences I've had. People love hearing my own experiences. My 50-second episode of the podcast was my entire story. It was who I am, what happened in my 20s up until this point that has formed me into being the coach that I am today. And it's how I connect with a new client that's coming in is like, I've been through something very similar. I helped myself through it and I have the tools and the resources, the knowledge and the expertise to help you through it too. But then for some reason, when I step into a group of strangers, I'm like, no emotions, not allowed.
It's a very vulnerable place to be. It absolutely is. And it makes total sense. You don't know who these people are. Why should I share myself with you? So that's when I'll take it in this direction. For the people that do get stressed out and do get anxious in those situations, especially from a speaking standpoint, I always say, do this first. Remind yourself that you're there to help them, that this person or these people need your help right now. And if you think about it from that respect, if someone comes up to you and says, hey, can you give me a hand? I need help with something. You don't stop and think about what you're saying, how you're saying it, if you're doing it right. You just want to help them. You just want to be there for them, to try and give them what they need. It's the same thing. You take the pressure off of yourself to be perfect. You take the pressure off of yourself to be the smartest, to be engaging or whatever, and you focus on, I'm here for you. Tell me what you need because I want to help you the best way that I can. If you can embrace that, then you're going to feel this weight leave your shoulders almost immediately. Not that it's going to take it away completely, but realizing that it's not about you. It's about them. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. And you don't have to be cute and adorable and cuddly and sweet and everything that you're supposed to be. You already are those things. You don't have to try and be those things. I had a client that I was working with, bucket loads of personality, incredibly smart, incredibly capable and brilliant and wonderful, CEO of a company. And when I was working with her, she would take on this different persona when she would start to speak and go into her presentation that was far more metered and quote unquote professional. And I finally stopped during one of our sessions and I said, what are you doing? And she said, what do you mean? I said, why are you changing who you are when you go into your presentation? I said, why are you trying to be someone else? I was like, this isn't you. And she had this breakthrough. It was an emotional breakthrough. And she got emotional and she actually broke down and she said, you're right. She said, I see these other CEOs or people in a similar position to me who are very put together and they're amazing and they're wonderful and they're so CEO-like. And I said, that's crap. That has nothing to do with you. That's not who you are. You're shortchanging everybody from your personality, your sense of humor, all the things that attract people to you. You're jipping them out of that. Being authentic, being who you are, embracing who you are, warts and all, flaws and all. I'm working with a gentleman right now where English is not his native tongue, and he still has a very heavy accent. So as you can imagine, he's very, very self-conscious about how he sounds. And I was like, you don't need to change who you are. This is a part of who you are. This is what makes you who you are. You don't have to be the funniest person in the room. You don't have to be the most articulate person in the room. You can be quirky. You can be weird. Embrace those things. Embrace it. That's what makes you you. We're not trying to make everybody robots, and I'm not going to make a stupid AI joke, but that's the thing. We don't want everybody to be the same. That's the whole point of me wanting to work with people in this capacity. I am going to help you embrace the things about yourself that maybe you're not crazy about. And I'm going to do everything in my power to say, no, don't run away from it. Lean into it, because nobody else has that. You're the only one. You're the only one that's like that. And that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah, you're the only you that's ever going to exist. I will say, I think part of the fear that comes with being vulnerable that's expressed through storytelling is that fine line of knowing when to give enough details or not giving enough details to make it an engaging and interesting story. I think we've all been on the receiving end of a very boring, long-winded story, and we're like, where's the point? Where is this? When is this ending? There is no end in sight, and you just tune out half of it. So how do you find that line? Where's the line of too much detail versus not enough when it comes to telling a story?
Well, you just said the magic word. What's the point? There has to be a point. If you're telling a story, then it needs to connect to what your overall message is, and that's what you have to keep in mind. If you're just using it as a platform for you to have verbal diarrhea, and you're just going to go on and give me every tiny, teeny detail of your life, we don't need all that. If you think about it from a storytelling standpoint, okay? Once upon a time, there were 3 bears. There was a papa bear, a mama bear, and a baby bear. And one day they decided to go for a walk. And when they left the house, they left the door open. Do you hear? It's one thing that's leading to the next part, to the next part, to the next part. It's building this tension. It's not. And then the papa bear, he came back in because he forgot his wallet and he thought, oh man, did I leave the toaster on? Yeah, we don't need all these little tiny details. We need the action that moves the story forward. It needs to move the story forward, and it needs to connect to your overall point. Absolutely. And in the world of acting and film and television, we use the word objective. What's your objective? What do you want from the person that you're talking to in that moment? What do you want from them right now? So what's too much and what's too little? Yeah, that's what you need editing for. And that's why you work on it. And that's why you rehearse. You don't just stand on stage and say, and go, I'm going to tell you my entire life story from the day that I was born. Go. No. Just give us the high notes, you know? Why are you telling me the story of your life? What do I need to take away from this? And it does have to have an ending. It's got to go somewhere. Otherwise, you're just wasting everybody's time. You truly are. So yeah, that's what preparation is for. That's what rehearsal is for. And it does take rehearsal. You do have to spend time with this. I'll use another client example. I may have talked to you about this as well. There is a client that I was working with. She works very much in industrial corporate America. And she gives these presentations and runs these team meetings on a semi-regular basis. And it's very much technical corporate work jargon that only the people that work for the company would understand. So she's working with me and she's reading off of this piece of paper in a PowerPoint presentation, literally reading off the piece of paper to me. And so I stopped and I asked her, how often do you run these meetings? And she said, probably every month. And I said, how long do they last? And she said, about 10 or 20 minutes. I said, how much time do you spend preparing? She said, I go over it a couple of times. And my face hit the floor. A couple of times for a 20-minute presentation. So I tried to illustrate it to her this way. I said, imagine I have to do a 10-minute monologue on stage in front of an audience, and I only go over it a couple of times. Do you think I'm going to be prepared? No. Do you think I'm going to be stressed and have anxiety? Yes. Do you think it's going to be any good? Probably not. Do you think I'm going to be ready? No, you're not. This is no different. It's no different. Not that you have to be completely memorized and word perfect and be the most amazing storyteller in the world, but otherwise just email that to me. Do your homework, be prepared, put in the time to have a point. What's the point of doing this? Well, the company makes me do it. That's not a point. That's, I don't know, that's forced labor. I'm not sure what it is. Why are you telling me this? Why do I need to know this? What am I supposed to take away from this? That's the stuff that you need to sit down and spell out for yourself. If it's not clear to you, it's not going to be clear to them. You have to have a clear objective.
I love it. I mean, even...
Now I'm getting angry.
You don't need to get angry. Passionate. You're getting passionate. But it makes sense because even when I write content, when I write social media content, there's always a point to the story I'm writing in the caption or in the video or in the picture or something. And it loops around to make something relatable, to share a shared experience, to give a glimpse of my own life, my own personal stories, and then also to be like, if you relate to this, we should probably be working together. Like, let's hop on a call. Or if you need help with this, I have a free resource for you. Or I have a podcast episode for you. Like, there's always some type of call to action to it that always leads back to me being a confidence coach for young adults. That's the point of every single story, every single post is, this is who I am, this is who I help, this is what I can do for you. And that's how a lot of stories go. It's, this is who I am. This is how it's going to relate back to you. Maybe it'll help you. Maybe it'll give you some insight. Maybe it'll inspire you. Who knows? But want to make sure that it's not long-winded so that it doesn't go on and on and on. And then you lose the person that you're talking to, that you're having a conversation with, because then they're going to be like, this person won't shut up. And I don't want to be around that person. Just basically, get to the point.
Get to the point.
I think it's a skill at the end of the day. And most people take it for granted, kind of like how they take running for granted, of everyone thinks one day they wake up and they can just go start running again. It's like, well, no, that's a skill. You've lost that skill, and now you're going to get injured because you lost that skill. When it comes to storytelling, you probably never had that skill. Kids are the worst storytellers. Go talk to like a 5-year-old. You cannot tell a story to save their life. And then this happened, and then this happened, and then bring in a random detail that came out of nowhere and makes no sense. And then, so it's something that you do need to learn if you want to be able to communicate with people to be heard.
And the opposite is also true, that you can leave out way, way, way too much. You know, most people, the clients that I work with, for the most part, when it comes to storytelling, when we're working on that aspect of it, I usually have to, it's like pulling teeth for some people to get the details out, to get more. Paint the picture is what I say. Paint the picture for me. I want to be able to feel or come as close to feeling what you felt or experiencing what you experienced. And to just tell me that I was driving in traffic and this guy cut me off and then I turned around and he was gone. And that's the end of the story. No, there's more to it. Where were you going? How were you feeling at that time? Were you paying, I wasn't even paying attention. I remember that morning, there's all kinds of things that can color out the rest of the picture so that the people can go, oh yeah, no man, I've been there before. I get that totally. I totally get that. Yeah, I can relate to that. So it's that dance. I feel like more people lean more towards not enough information. And then there are those who, sure, you can go, hey man, let's reel it back. You've gotten really, really good at the information now. Let's reel it in a little bit. And it's the same in so much of what we're going to talk about or have talked about. I'm going to relate back to acting. It's the same idea. It's the same process of go too far. We can always bring you back. We can always bring you back. I'd rather you go too far and give me too much and go, great, let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. Than to just go, I have one thing to say. Done. Yeah. So give me more. Give me more than less. We can always edit.
Yeah. And that all comes with being prepared. And on that topic, I want to switch notes a little bit, but I want to talk about filler words. When I was in 8th grade, I had a project. It was the colony project, and we had to present our colony. It was one state in the U.S. that you picked, and whatever, that's besides the point. That's too much detail. You don't need to know that. You had to speak for 10 minutes straight. Everyone started out with 100 points. So you had 100, your grade was 100, and for every filler word that you used in that 10 minutes, you got 1 point deducted. I am proud to say I got a 100% on that project, and I part of that reason was I made sure I practiced the hell out of my talk. And I feel as though that was probably the most beneficial way to get me out of the habit of using filler words. My go-to was like, at least most of the time. I still use them every now and then. But what are the best tips to getting out of the habit of using them on a regular basis?
What I find is that for most people, filler words are to fill even the slightest pause or moment of silence, which in English grammar is punctuation. Most filler words take the place of a period. So when it's your responsibility to talk or to be the center of attention or to have the information on the subject, most people feel that they have to speak constantly and fill every moment of air, time, and space, because if I stop talking, then you're going to think that I'm done, or maybe I haven't gotten enough information out. You're still looking at me, so therefore you want more, so I have to keep going. And that's not the case. Pausing is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Going back to what we were just talking about, having a point, making that point, and letting it land, letting it hit, and checking in with your audience to see if they're getting it. This goes back to the audience engagement part. Just because I'm speaking, again, I'm using air quotes. I don't know if we're using video or not, if it's just audio. Just because I'm the speaker, I'm the center of attention, doesn't mean that I have to fill every breathing moment with words and sound. No. Some of the best moments, some of the best points are made without saying anything. Again, I'm going to relate it to movies and television. Go back and watch some of your favorite movies of all time. And pay attention to how often the person who's on screen isn't saying anything. And you're still captivated. The words have very little to do with the actual overall message. Here, I'm gonna pull something up real quick. Just bear with me, because I don't do facts and figures and things like that very much. But this is a big one that I think is useful. Okay. According to research, an excellent presentation is 38% your voice, 55% nonverbal communication, and just 7% your content. So, in other words, your delivery matters even more than what you say. That's the point. That's the point. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much power in pause. And I also think a lot of times those filler words come in of you trying to think of your next words. And we're here to tell you it's okay to just not say anything, not make any noises out of your mouth, so that you can think of what it is you're trying to say next. So it does come out clearly and efficiently and effectively.
Usually it is as a result of not enough preparation. Not enough preparation, so you're kind of floundering. But when I work with people, I will even signal to them some kind of physical signal or sign to indicate that's the end of the sentence. Stop. Now continue. Stop. Now continue. And it also helps with pacing. It helps you to slow down, because most of the time the nervous energy is going to take over and you're going to be hyped up and moving faster than you rehearsed it anyway. So working in that slower, kind of going through molasses method is going to help you once you get on stage or get in front of that audience. Filler words it's punctuation. It's a substitute for punctuation. And just feeling like you haven't said enough. And it is connected to that as well. I don't have enough confidence in myself that I'm interesting enough, or that what I'm saying is accurate enough. You start to second guess yourself, and so you'll over-explain it.
I was about to say it all comes back to your confidence. So I'm glad that you brought that up as well. That's what everything in life comes back to, your confidence. And you need to know how to be prepared. You need to know how to take care of yourself. You need to know how to be a fully functioning adult so that you can feel more confident in yourself. And then in regards to public speaking, with the words coming out of your mouth.
And you need to be okay with falling completely on your face and making a mess of it. And being willing to do that. Being willing to go out there and just say, I'm going to take a shot. This is what I've prepared. I hope it goes well. If it doesn't, well, we'll see what happens. Most people from a public speaking standpoint or presenting standpoint, the big goal or objective is just to get through it, just to survive it. And to me, that's a wasted opportunity because you're not focusing more on whether or not your message lands, what your audience is taking away from it. Again, being there for them, not making it about you, making it about them. So that when you're finished, they're not applauding because you're still alive and on your feet. They're applauding because, yay, we loved what you said. We loved what your message was.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. It reminds me of when I did my speaking event back in November of last year, and this was all part of it. It was storytelling, but not giving too much detail. It was connecting with your audience, but I also know that it was my first on-stage presence where I didn't have slides, I didn't have note cards, I had nothing besides my body staring to a bunch of faces I didn't know. And I was a nervous wreck, and I didn't go into it with I'm providing my audience with a ton of value and I'm the expert. I went into it with, if I mess up, I'm going to be so down on myself because I know I'm capable of so much more. So it really just comes back to the own pressure and the own expectations that we have for ourselves. And I know this is a very common thing, and it's what creates that anxiety and that nervousness, and also because it's something you care about and it's something that's important. So what are some of the best ways to overcome those types of nerves, or also reminding yourself of, hey, it's not about you. Try your best, deliver the information, practice hard, but it's not about you. But also know that there's still nerves.
Going into it, wanting to have fun. Let yourself have fun. You have to go into it no matter what the outcome is, what the result is, whether you get a standing ovation and people chase you out of the room rock star style, or you get the polite golf clap. It's highly unlikely that you're going to get the polite golf clap if you allow yourself to have fun. And that means, once again, not trying to be perfect, just being yourself. Let yourself enjoy the moment, no matter what happens. Even if I don't like slides. I try to encourage people to use them as little as possible, if at all. But if your entire slide presentation goes sideways and technology hates you on that day and it doesn't work, who cares? Find a way to, once again, go into it. Don't pretend that it didn't happen. Don't acknowledge it. Don't let it destroy you. Don't let it be the end. It's technology. There's nothing that you can do about it. You're not a wizard. Things go sideways. Have fun with it. Allow yourself to have fun with it. Everybody in that audience is going to be able to relate to your situation and the mistakes that can spontaneously just happen. I'm putting out this post. I don't know when this episode is going to come out or not. The very first play that I ever did, I had the lead role in it, and it was part of a trilogy, first and third parts of this Neil Simon trilogy, and I had the lead in both shows because it's basically the same cast. Huge responsibility. Very last performance. Packed house. We've had a very successful run turning people away at the door. There's a scene where my older brother in the show gives me a brotherly shove onto the bed in the bedroom, and the bed broke. Was not supposed to break. The bed literally went and crashed right onto the platform on the stage. And you can hear the audience go, uh-oh. You can't acknowledge that. You can't pretend that didn't happen. You can't pretend that it didn't happen. You have to acknowledge it in some way. And I did. I don't know what came over me. Again, this goes back to the preparation. I was prepared enough. I knew it inside and out to where I could get out of that situation or acknowledge the situation and have it connect to the story and keep moving forward. So I threw out this ad lib and the place went crazy. They went nuts. I've never heard people laugh that loud in my life. You can't pretend that it didn't happen. You can't sweep it under the rug. So my point with that, once again, is to just let yourself have fun. Know that it may not be perfect. It's too much for you to expect. It's too much for you to hold on to. It's too much to hope for. allowing yourself to just to enjoy the experience, enjoy your time with them, whatever that might mean, whatever that might be. To me, that's the best way to approach the nerves and the anxiety, is to try and make it fun for yourself. If you're having fun, they're going to have fun. There's a much better chance that they're going to enjoy themselves if you are. It's contagious. It's absolutely contagious. It's not the easiest thing to just snap into it and turn it on and be like, hey, I'm going to have a ball today, especially if you're, feeling like a fish out of water. But acknowledge that I feel nervous. I feel anxious. I feel like a fish out of water. This is not a comfortable environment for me. Saying those things out loud, acknowledging them, whether it be to yourself, to the universe, to your audience, those are all things that we can relate to. Because I can tell you right now, just about everybody in that room that you're speaking to does not want to trade places with you. So you're there, they're not. None of them want to trade places with you.
Yeah, a good way to think about it. It's knowing, you said it, of it, you're not going to be comfortable. This is something new. This is something that you're not used to. So that's where a lot of the nerves come from. It's your body and brain being like, oh my God, this is foreign. It's going to kill us. Even though it's not. That's really what it is. And I've spoken about that for so many different things on different episodes. But I want to ask you, what do you think is the hardest part of public speaking for the general population, for the 20-somethings listening? What's the hardest part?
I'm going to say it's feeling like you have something to contribute. For the 20-somethings, I'm going to go back to what we talked about earlier, which is feeling like I'm in my 20s. What do I know? You know what you know. Your experience has been your experience up to this point. You can't pretend to know past that. Here's what's happened to me so far. And that's just as interesting as anybody else. I don't care if you're 100 years old. Your experience is your experience. So the hardest part is to feel like you have something to contribute that is worthwhile. And you absolutely do. I'll fight anybody who says different. The next part is to just decide for yourself, what do I want to share? What's something that I feel passionate enough about that I have to get out there. I want to share with somebody. I want to share with an audience. What's my point? What's my message? How can I help? To me, that's the name of the game at the end of the day for whatever it might be. How can I help? If you're a politician, they're trying, at least giving off the illusion that they're trying to help. How can I help? Teachers, how can I help? Coaches, CEOs, how can I make this company better? How can I help make your job easier? It all comes down to, what can I do to help? Here's what I have to offer. If you can use it, great.
I would love for that to be the final piece of advice, but I want to give you the space to give any final words of wisdom or advice or tidbits of information for the 20-somethings listening.
The 20-somethings and everybody out there, it applies. It doesn't matter what your age is. All of this stuff takes practice. It all takes practice. It all takes time. It's just like working out. It's just like playing an instrument. It's just like it's another skill. And if you don't put time into it, it's not going to improve. If you go to therapy once a week or once a month, and the only time that you spend thinking about or working on the stuff that you're talking about with your therapist, you're not going to get anywhere. If you only work in the actual session itself and not outside on your own, no, you're not going to see any improvements. I've been a professional actor for 30 plus years. I still work on it. I still work with coaches. I still ask people for their feedback or advice. Every famous person that you know, every professional athlete has trainers and coaches that they work with. This stuff is not just automatic and, comes without effort. It takes a great deal of effort. So if it's a part of your job and it's a part of your profession, or you want it to be a bigger part of your job or your profession, then be willing to be open to looking at yourself in that way and putting in the time and knowing that, I may fall on my face, or not may, I'm probably going to fall on my face for a while until I start to get better at this.
It's everything. So I agree. I've mentioned that on episode a long time ago of what you said, professional athletes have their coaches, singers have singing coaches, like what actors have acting coaches. What makes you think you don't need a coach? It's only going to make your life easier and better. You cannot do this thing we call life alone. It's not going to work out well. It's going to be way more of a struggle bus than it needs to be. And I have a coach, I have a therapist, I have my support system. You need yours. And if public speaking is part of the thing that you need to work on, use Brian. This is why I brought him on the show. It's for you to have another resource to add to your collection, to add to your support system.
Feels like baseball cards. Got it, need it, got it, need it. But yes, it's nice to know that there are resources that exist, and I'm certainly happy to be one for whoever might be interested in talking.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Brian. I think we all know that learning how to speak is an important and often overlooked part of life, since we've all been talking since we were a toddler, but we're never really told how to talk effectively. So I want to thank you for sharing all of this valuable information and storytelling, and for coming on How to 20-something.
It was my absolute pleasure, Jess. Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Where can people find you if they want to get in touch or ask you any questions or inquire about working with you?
You can go to my website, brianlafontaine.com. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn.
All right, perfect. And those will all be linked in the show notes, per usual, for you to immediately access. But otherwise, this does conclude another fabulous episode of How to 20-something. If this episode resonated with you, or you know someone who could benefit from giving it a listen, then please pass it along, post it on social media, and tag me when you do so I can see it and express my gratitude. And as always, I can't wait to be in your headphones again next week with another brand new episode.